It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into what feels like a Wednesday, and that's probably because it's Wednesday. Gary, how are you?
Going through the headlines here.
Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite of the day.
Okay.
Hunter Biden's lawyers accuse federal prosecutors of mistaking sawdust for cocaine in the evidence photographs. That's not weed, it's oregano.
Listen, your defense lawyer, Cheech Marin, is on the phone. Hey! Right, man. I'm pretty sure that's sawdust, man.
And you're, well, wait a minute, that would be Tommy.
And that was Tommy. The first one was Cheech.
That's his bail bonds.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man.
Chong bail bonds.
Chong bonds. Hey, man, we'll get you out, man. It may take a minute, man.
And we're using that weed farm as collateral.
Hey, man, what's that over there? Made you look, man. Yeah, listen, I don't know what the kids are into these days. It's probably, it could have been sawdust along with cocaine. Gary,
I will say that I've never, this is just me.
I was about to say the same, what you're about to say.
I've never had a pile of sawdust in my house.
Well, I've never had one neatly organized to the point that I'm waiting for my contractor to say hello to my little friend.
All right, now I've got, that's just burned into my memory now. Instead of the pile of cocaine, it's
sawdust.
It's sawdust.
Yeah, my contractor. Say hello to my little friend, and then he's got his buzzsaw going. Yeah, I'm sure it was sawdust. I'm positive of it.
It's just my favorite. It's like sawdust. Well, how did they they say they need to, again, they're objecting to the evidence and claiming that the pictures, this is Biden's attorneys filed a motion in Delaware Tuesday to support his effort to compel discovery in his federal gun case. They criticize Weiss's investigation by invoking photographs and the indictment of former FBI informant for making false allegations of bribery against Joe and Hunter. Well, that would be logical that they would do that.
Yeah.
Multiple sources have pointed out, and a review of the discovery confirms, and this is the court filing it, this is actually a photograph of sawdust from an expert carpenter and was sent to Mr. Biden.
What was the message being conveyed that was being sent to Mr. Biden? Hey, get me some cocaine that looks a lot like this sawdust. Hey, I don't know what I'm thinking about. What are you thinking about? Little lines of sawdust.
I've got a question to ask now. Not being familiar with how you hide cocaine, can you use food coloring in cocaine to change the color from white to something else? Or would it lose its effect?
I don't know. I would guess you probably don't want to do that. I have no idea. I'm still trying to work out the how it becomes crack thing. I mean, it's like, well, they cook it and then they boil it and then I thought, that's a lot of work to do drugs. You know, it's like, do you get a break? Do you get a 15-minute break like union or something while you're?
You would be the first quiet quitting drug dealer.
I'm like,
it's too much work to do this.
This is way too much work. And you're telling me the buzz lasts 15 minutes? It took me 30 minutes to set it up.
And what do I need for meth? I need the pool acid and antihistamine?
Right.
I need to go in and...
Oh, my gosh.
No, that's too much work.
I heard a stand-up comedian the other day, genius joke. He says, man, I've been so sick this cold season. He said, I bought some methamphetamine trying to turn it back into Sudafed.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's, no, that's too much work. You know, that's way too much, okay, beer, pop it open, drink it. And wait.
The local store, they don't have it anymore, but they used to have pool supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually went in one day. This goes back 15 years ago when I first got my pool. And I went, okay, they got pool acid. And then I got antihistamine, a box of antihistamine.
Oh, yeah.
I put the antihistamine, beep, 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 the pool acid, beep, 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 beep. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Then I put it together, and I went, oh. And then they came over and, checked my age and ID. And it was funny because it was young kids saying, the antihistamine for some reason. He goes, but the pool acid. I go, well, it's acid. And I said, and I'm sure it's like, okay, we're not going to sell acid to kids.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the thing. I said, but they're both the ingredients of meth.
Yeah, I mean.
And he looked at me. I go, no. I've got allergies and I have a pool.
Yes. I'm not making alpha dimethyl phenylmethylamine hydrochloride.
Well, I would expect the feds in the parking lot taking down my license plate number for something like that.
Exactly.
If they're going to sit in a parking lot taking license plates of parents that are at school board meetings objecting to critical race theory.
Oh, yeah.
And the liberal radical transgender activist movement.
Right.
All right. Do you get pool acid?
Yeah. Exactly.
Check the amount that he got. How many gallons is this pool?
Yeah. Does he live in a RV in the middle of New Mexico?
I can imagine they pull me in for questioning. All right. So you got a 13,000 gallon pool. I don't have a huge pool. I mean, it's enough. It's 36 feet long, but
that's what mine was. 13,000.
Yeah. I mean, it's
13,300.
Nice. All right. How many ounces do you put in order to take the what was it? The pH down.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, down.
Right.
How much acid do you need? I can see those questions. And then what about your pool stabilizer? Asking me all these questions about a pool to find out if I'm making meth.
Yeah.
And let's talk about your allergies.
Right.
But I don't get this stuff anymore. Back then, it was like 15 years ago. They were still, selling the stuff that makes you tired. They didn't have the non-drowsy stuff 15 years ago.
Right.
That really came out where all those things that were prescriptions and became over the counter.
Well, then it was a few months ago. They said a lot of the cold medicines aren't effective, and I said, "Well, who's doing the study? Because if it's Fauci, I'm going to keep buying it. You know what I mean? If it still works, this is the thing." I can't trust anything. Get your shot. No. Quit taking methamphetamine. Quit taking cold medicine, to say. No.
It's funny because every time I bring up the story, I get somebody who's furious.
Mm-hmm.
That you're defaming FDR.
Mm.
But I saw it on the History Channel. In fact, it was on again, the same one. In fact, around December 7th, it always comes up on the History Channel.
Mm.
That FDR had on December 7th, 1941, had a huge sinus infection.
Mm.
And back then you actually had like liquid cocaine, and they put it at the end of the little Q-tip, and then stick it up into your nose, and it numbs your nose.
Right.
And he was doing that on December 7th. He was being treated. That was the normal treatment. And it's like, I remember somebody furious at me. How dare you imply he was a drug addict? didn't say that.
We're not saying he was Hunter. Calm down.
Right, exactly.
That's just an interesting
Now-
fact of how they treated things.
Now, I'm amazed they didn't use that excuse. Look, this is leftover cocaine
It's-
from the FDR administration.
They put sawdust up his nose. It was only sawdust.
But that was, that's a fascinating part of American history. It
Yeah,
should be
it's just an interesting fact.
yeah, that's,
You know.
people get angry over everything. I told you that I got an email, and it's the majority of the negative email we get are people that don't listen to what we say. I had a guy write us, and he had voted for Trump twice, and said, "I can't believe you guys are, absolute supporters of Trump and his, so you didn't like his mean tweets." And I'm like, defense.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I just wrote back to him. I said, I don't know what to say because we have never held that opinion.
Right. Right.
And I was like, so thanks, but I've got no response.
Everybody's living in absolutes. And if you want to live in absolutes, great. But the problem with hearing half of everything we say, and that's pretty much the rule of thumb in radio, then, you have to, you have to ask the question, do you guys believe, rather than telling us what we believe? I can't believe that you believe this. We get that all the time, and it quite often is wrong.
Yeah, the vast majority of the time, to me, what I get, I'm guessing it's 95% of the negative email are things we've never said.
Yeah,
it's like, and I said, I don't know what to say. I don't know what show you're listening to, or is someone claiming their red eye?
Yeah, right.
Somewhere, and that's what's going on because we've never held that opinion. And so I can't even argue with you.
Right.
I'm not going to argue with you over an opinion we've never taken, but actually where he was headed, we've had the opposite opinion. We've had the exact opposite opinion.
Sure.
On that.
Yeah.
Where people have said, because we've confronted it directly, where people have said, well, all because, when I've seen it, well, are you upset now? Excuse me, and all this because of mean tweets. And we went, so you're saying if you're a Trump supporter, then he sent mean tweets. Well, if you care about getting reelected, and the only reason you didn't get reelected, you believe, is because of mean tweets, then don't do the mean tweets.
Yeah.
That was our argument.
You can start there. Right. Right.
Our argument was not, we've never used that defense, the mean tweet defense, to defend Trump ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about defending Trump. It's number one, it's defending the legal system, because yesterday we were we were talking about what was unfair in the legal system.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we've defended Trump when we agree with him on the issues every time. If we don't agree with Trump on the issues, believe me, we'll tell you.
The two-tier justice system has a poster child, and it is Donald Trump.
Yes, it is.
And and if you don't like Donald Trump, never liked Donald Trump, sorry, then you need to tell your side to stop doing the things they're doing, because they just might get him elected, and much to your dismay. Now, if he's the nominee, I'm going to be voting for him in November. I don't have a problem saying that. Voted for him in 2020, voted for him in 2016. Don't have a problem for him because with that. And I look at it this way. In 2016, it was like, okay, we're hoping, because he had never been president. He did some things I never thought he would get done. Effectively, as president, gets a great grade. Getting reelected is part of it. Getting in there and then finishing with a second term is part of it. And for those who want to turn things around, that's what you want. You want to win.
You know what it is? I just realized with the guy, because I said it again yesterday, I just realized maybe this is what he's upset about when I say Trump on the issues is a moderate.
Yeah. Which is true.
Yeah, he's not a right-wing conservative.
Well, I mean, because we're looking at the entire scope of his presence in the public, issuing opinion.
Issue after issue.
Issue after issue on talk shows and everything else. And we talk about how yesterday we talked about it again. how the left has loved him for years. And the reason they did is because on the issues, he's very mainstream.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, he's Satan.
And when they loved him, he was promoting the things of liberalism that he believed that he believed at the time.
Right. Exactly.
And I say that because I say that because I'm not sure on some issues where he still stands.
Right. It makes me wonder if, because we brought up single payer, because he had talked about that as late as 2015. I think it was on Letterman. And he said, I think we need to revisit it. I think that's about as far as he went. But imagine he started promoting that on the campaign trail. What in the world would the liberals do? Because my first guess is that, a slightly educated guess, is that they'd say, I don't want him taking care of my health care, which would be ironic. Because we said it back in the day. When Obama was doing Obamacare, we said, okay, let's pick another devil from the right, Dick Cheney. Do you want Dick Cheney in charge of your health care?
When he said that, we had Trump supporters saying he's a business person. He could run Medicare right.
Yep. No, that's the point, is that he probably, with his loyal followers, they will be almost instantly on board.
Which is interesting because that's the argument that socialism works. It's just the right people haven't run it.
Well, because in 2016, we're going to dismantle Obamacare. We're going to get rid of it, blah, 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 blah. Well, then if you were to and I don't know this. I have no idea. He may have abandoned the idea on single payer, but it's an example of where he has been mainstream over the years. And it wouldn't shock me for him to bring it back up. Yeah. And I would wonder how the left would react.
Right. And we did say that yesterday. All of his opinions, where he stands on the issues, all of his opinions are in the mainstream of Republican and Democrat priorities over the last 50 years.
Right. Yep.
The things that he has said and supported. Now, he didn't go full forth with a lot of the liberal things when he was president, which was good.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing, which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies, but the trick is to be proactive and not reactive. Conduct routine tire inspections and pay special attention to any unusual wear patterns. Once unusual tread wear is visible on a tire, its traction and stopping distance is reduced and its lifespan will likely be shortened.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Coming up here on the show, the largest ever COVID vaccine study. You saw that 99 million people around 8 different countries were looked at. And it's the largest ever COVID vaccine study. Links the shot to a small increase in heart and brain conditions. We'll get to some of the specifics on it here because I think it's important to look at everything that comes out post-COVID.
Sure, absolutely.
Everything that comes out post-COVID, we need to know about, and the public needs to know about.
Yep.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. Still a lot to learn that I need to find out about the latest COVID study. But just this, I'm reading this from the New York Post, but you and I have been looking at a bunch of different articles here on it and a bunch of different analysis on it. COVID vaccines from companies like Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca have been linked to rare occurrences of heart, brain, and blood disorders, according to the largest vaccine study to date. The researchers from the Global Vaccine Data Network analyzed 99 million people who received jabs in 8 different countries. The United States not included in that, by the way, just so you know. Monitored for increases in 13 medical conditions. The study, which was published in the journal Vaccine last week, found that vaccines were linked to a slight spike in neurological, blood, and heart-related medical conditions. The rare cases of myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, were found in the first, second, and third doses of the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna's mRNA vaccines. Another heart condition, pericarditis, and inflammation of the cardiac muscle, had a 6.9-fold increased risk in those who received a third dose, and AstraZeneca's viral vector shot, the study found. Meanwhile, the first and fourth dose of the Moderna jab had 1.7-fold and 2.6-fold increase risk. There was a 2.5 times greater risk of developing Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare neurological disorder in which the immune system attacks the nerves. Now, the reason that I think that's important is looking at the different numbers, and you see things like 2.5 times more. You look at that and go, well, that's a huge increase, right? Mm-hmm. Well, for the Guillain-Barré syndrome, it was a total of, out of 99 million vaccines, 166 people. So that ended up being, when you say 2.5 times, you're like, oh, okay, that means 80 million people. No, I mean, according to this study, 166 people it affected. And those are the kind of numbers. I want the actual numbers, and I want the per 100,000 number out there that you can compare to other vaccines. That's what I'm still looking for on it.
Yeah.
Those have been things that you can make a comparison on to look at the risk. I mean, what's the risk when we all got smallpox vaccines? What was the risk? No, I have no idea. When we got all the polio vaccine, all those things, were they, and look at history of the vaccines just to make a comparison. We all know that anything that you do, any medical procedure, there's always odds that it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. There are people that get on the table to get a knee replacement, and they don't come out of it.
Right.
There's anything that you do, as we know, there is a risk. There is no perfect vaccine, but how imperfect is this vaccine? And that's not a criticism. It's searching for the scientific analysis of it, of the actual vaccine. So that's interesting, and we'll keep you updated on it, because I think people want to know. But when you say those, meanwhile, the first and fourth dose of Moderna's jab had a 1.7-fold and 2.6-fold increased risk. How many people is that? And what's the rate per 100,000 people? And then compare that to other vaccines. And when you use a 2.5 times greater risk of developing Guillain-Barré syndrome, that rare neurological disorder, the next question would be, well, how many people is that? Right? And that one I got, I forgot where it's either Bloomberg or Fox or New York Post. I got all those articles in front of me. 166 is what they claim. Mm-hmm. And so need to get in, you get into these studies, they're really hard to read if you're not a medical professional.
Well, they're hard to read, and also for me, just as a layman, it brings about a lot of questions, like what would be the commonalities of the underlying conditions of any of those that were studied.
Oh, yeah.
Leading into that, so all of that, age groups, ethnicity, gender,
Weight.
any pre-existing condition,
Yeah.
and all of that goes into it. And so, and how much does that, bear on the results? So that's the question I would have. And how much is directly, linked? Because it's important to know if they can say, look, it wouldn't have happened without this. If they could directly say that these conditions wouldn't have happened in these individuals. And so that's what I'm looking for them to do. If you're saying, okay, this is what's happened and this is what we've noticed in the study, the next question is, all right, now make the direct link. That's what it comes down to.
Right. And what demographic is most affected by it and should avoid it the most. And as we've always, you've looked at the science of it, if you were young and healthy, there was probably no reason to take the vaccine because your chance of death still was less than the flu. When you look at the fatality rate over 65, the percentage of which I believe is somewhere over, it's between, I think, 10 and 20%, of those people over the age of 65 that have an underlying condition, the fatality rate skyrocketed. So you look at it in a completely different way.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, well then what are my odds of getting some type of heart inflammation or, any of the other 13 diseases, what is it? And that's the things you go over with your doctor. We've always said this. You go to your doctor for this. The last thing I'm going to do is read your life.
Yeah.
Or pretend I know your life or your health conditions and give you medical advice over the air. We never did that. We said, if you trust your doctor, you listen to him and then you make your decision.
Well, and even still, there have been, I had the same doctor for, my gosh, better part of 20 years. And he moved away. But during that time with him, and I'm still going to his office, that practice is still there. And seeing another doctor that I had seen when he wasn't available. And so you build that trust with your doctor. But even still, there were times that I would question, hey, we want to, maybe we should look at this. And then I would go home and it happened a couple of times. I'd go home and do my homework and say, you know what? No, not worth it. Side effects, whatever it might be. What's the other option? And then go from there. And there were times when he would say, my doctor would say, and my new doctor, she will say, all right, we could look at this, but actually we don't want to, based on other things, we don't want to, maybe we don't want to use that approach or whatever it is. But there has to be that trust. Because ultimately, if you don't, then maybe, I don't know why you're going to the doctor in the first place if you don't trust. You don't have to do everything that they say. You should always, if you can get a second opinion, you should do that as often as possible, especially on big considerations. But beyond that, too, you just have to kind of know yourself. I mean, you have to know what conditions you have. You have to be familiar with them. You have to want to treat those conditions and know what your options are. And if they throw something at you and you don't understand it fully, or maybe you start taking it, you believe it's not working for you in the same way, you got to speak up too. There's, it is that two-way street. I think any doctor would tell you that.
When you see the prescription medicines advertised on television and they put in the disclaimer, the incredible thing is the disclaimer may keep people from going to the doctor if they need that particular prescription.
Right.
Because the disclaimers on so many of these medicines, it's like you hear it, it's like a horror show.
Right.
Like, why would I take that vaccine? You're trying to kill me.
Yeah.
Because there is no context put in to the disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
Side effects can be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for how many people?
Well, because then that's another thing. This is why it's interesting to look at these studies, because you really don't know where it's going, but especially in when they go into trial mode on medications. When you're doing research and development, you go into trial mode, then they have to make notations of things that happen to these patients, right? So, well, 3 of the patients had this. And, okay, was that related to taking this medication? Or was it just the case that they actually had that underlying condition and that just occurred while they were part of that trial? And so that's those are the things that kind of muddy up the waters.
Well, and the other thing that muddies off the water is because there were so many lies coming from government and so much attempt to censor what was going on that there are people, no matter what they hear, are going to say no.
Right.
Because they look at it and they say, you lied to us over and over and over and over again.
Well, that's what
you locked us in our homes. I don't trust anything that you say. I don't care what the study says.
Exactly. That was my joke earlier. They say, get the shot. No. Quit taking cold medicine. No. I mean, it's
right.
That's where that trust and that, that's part of the whole thing again of establishing a trust with your doctor. And there are a lot of us. Look, I ask my mom for picture ID. Okay, there are things that I just simply am going to want to verify. And when you're talking about, okay, I need you to ingest this once a day. It's like, okay, you're the one that has to deal with the side effects. You're the one that has to, deal with the condition and the side effects and all that. And your doctor is aware of that. And you're also the one that has to, quite often, at least in my case, realize, what? This is my best option. It's not a perfect option, but it is my best option. And so that's part of that trust building and also stepping back and trying not to be too paranoid. But, when you're talking about your own body, I mean, it's always good to question things. And then when the government starts lying to you and they get involved and they step up, and then you have someone, quite honestly, with the arrogance of Fauci, the way that he was just arrogant and what we have seen since, I think it undermines the integrity of vaccines in general in the U.S.
Oh, it did.
Maybe for quite some time.
Yeah.
That distrust is going to be in place for a long time. And this is the problem we've had with it from the beginning. And that is, you better put a mask on. You better stay 6 feet. You better get the shot. You better do all this. And the next time, if there is something that is far more deadly, and we're looking at it and they're telling us one thing and we don't know what to do, we're still not going to trust them first. And they may have the answer. What they're offering may be the right thing, but the distrust will block that for a lot of people, and it will cost lives. This is why people like Fauci need to be held accountable.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our calling. I'm Gary McNamara. The 99 million is the biggest study that's been done, and another study came out yesterday. This was from Michigan, that it was over 4,600 people. And this COVID study shows 43 to 58% lower prevalence of long COVID among vaccinated people. So, you take that into consideration. And then the other thing I would ask is, okay, how accurate is a poll? A poll like this, because it's not a voting poll, and so when you take just 4,000, is that a big enough cross-section to get an idea of what has happened nationwide?
Yeah.
Or worldwide, for that matter, because,
right.
Because the other study was done in 8 countries. The United States was not one of them.
Right, yeah. And so you look at a number of items that bring up. It seems like with everything that we learn about it, it brings up a thousand more questions. And my parents had COVID a couple of weeks ago. They're still getting over it. My sister, who lives about 15 minutes away from them, texted me over the weekend. She said, I keep having days where I feel better, because she had it the same time they had it. And she said, I get to where I'm feeling better, and then I'm really off. I'll feel okay in the morning and then bad in the evening, or vice versa. And I kind of went through the same thing last October when I had it. It was just really slow to come around.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. And I'm Gary McNamara. Hello. Good morning. Well, just reading here from the Canadian Economist, God Sad. He's been on Rogan, I think.
Yeah.
6 or 7 times. He's a marketing professor, but he's, talks economics and a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I never viewed him, when I've seen him interviewed, as right wing. Have you?
No, actually, I didn't.
Right. I mean, I can't get a. Well, I know, for example, he's not insane left.
Right.
He
doesn't.
Not, right,
he doesn't appear to. He doesn't present with an agenda.
Right.
But in my opinion.
But he wrote here, no person, irrespective of your political orientation, should support the grotesque judgment that was rendered recently against Donald Trump. If I understood the case, Trump asked to borrow money from the bank, and in doing so, he provided a valuation of his real estate assets as collateral. Apparently, the valuation was inflated, and this is somehow a crime, even though the filed papers made sure to remind the bank that they should conduct their due diligence, which presumably they did. Thus, they agreed to the valuation and granted the loan, which Trump subsequently paid. Did I get all the substantive details correctly? If so, this is beyond Banana Republic parody. Let us suppose that I decide to put my house up for sale. I list it at X, knowing full well that the likely value is really XY. Wait a minute. Let's not get into the radical transgender movement here. However, I take a shot to see what the market will bear. Could the government come and say, well, you knowingly inflated the list price of your home, even though someone decided to pay X for it? And we are suing you on their behalf? It's unreal. The death of negotiation tactics, the death of the free market, the death of private enterprise between two parties, the oversight of all commercial interactions by big daddy government, the politics of the justice system is breathtakingly dangerous. And he wrote that yesterday. I think that's probably a better scenario than even what we've come up with property taxes, because you're talking purely the private sector.
Yeah, yeah.
I put my car for sale. I run an ad saying that I want, $14,000 for my used vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only Blue Book says it's 10.
Mm-hmm.
But I do that at 14 and, say this car is worth every cent. It's got this, it's got this.
You mean like dealerships?
I was talking the individual.
But I mean, that's what happens with dealerships. They'll here's our price. We're going to, and,
Oh.
and you can go on and you
Is-
can watch it. And I know this because I bought a new vehicle yesterday.
Wait a minute.
What?
Then is MSRP fraud?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Would that be fraud under New York state law?
Mhm.
By the way, the number of people that came out yesterday and said exactly what we said yesterday. Does Governor Hochul understand what she said? That she made the case.
Oh, my gosh.
She made the case that, no, don't worry about this. This was just about Trump.
Yeah.
It's
hey,
like,
we
oh.
don't hate you. We just hate Trump.
We're making it known.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the narrative coming, because the Jessica Tarlov was, the liberal on the Five yesterday was trying to make the case. Trump's saying it. Everybody's saying if it can happen to Trump, it can happen to you. Well, who's going to have 355? I mean, it goes into the whole thing that nobody else is Trump, and it's like stop being a troll.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not that everybody will find themselves in the same place. It's will the standard of law, if you're going after Trump, what stops that standard of law that we just mentioned, for example, if you're going to sell your vehicle?
Well, it sets a precedent, and anyone who knows anything, all you have to do is watch just a few episodes of Law and Order to know what that means. That legally, if it sets a precedent, then it will be applied
Right.
accordingly.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, then you're unqualified to be governor. She's unqualified to be governor anyway, but that's not the primary point here. This is the problem, though, when you look at that. You could go after every car dealership in New York.
If you don't have a set price.
Because
Well-
used car dealership, you could, because on new it's MSRP. Used car dealership, it's, this is because they do the valuation. Well, we don't do the blue book. We do the black book. We don't do that book anymore. We do this book. And they always come up with new standards for evaluating. And those, by the way, the valuation changes.
When I went to the airport the other day, just to get a bottled water, because I like to load myself with water before I fly,
Mm-hmm.
and it was $3.89 for a bottled water. That was the advertised price.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a coupon?
Is no? I was in Buffalo, not DFW.
Oh, you didn't buy the Jerry Jones sell your house to buy a bottle of water.
No. There was no water license that I had to get.
A water drinking license.
Yeah, I didn't have to get a water drinking license,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like, okay, we're giving you that discount price of $3.98, but you have a $10
Mm-hmm. $10 per month.
water license.
Yeah,
right,
for life.
exactly. But you're thinking of it, if you're going to stretch these laws out,
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying is when you sell something, you have to, I don't know what figure you're supposed to use. Well, you're not supposed to inflate it. Well, then what price do I use?
So there,
Because when I see,
what is market value?
when I see $3.89, but when I go into the store and I can get a bottled water for $1.50,
Mm-hmm.
and you sit there and you say, well, this is way overvalued here. You advertising that price is fraud because it's not worth that much.
Well, think about that.
It's worth that much because this idiot here paid for it.
If back in the day before 9/11, you could fill your water bottle at home, with filtered water and bring it through. And now, because of, national security and TSA and all that, well, you can't bring it through and you're on the other side. Well, those retailers know that. You're a captive audience. You want water now? Of course you do, because you couldn't bring any with you. So you're going to be paying, Mr. McNamara. Oh, you want a snack? Okay, get out all three bank cards. But that's where you are, because I do know you can bring snacks through, and I smuggle them in all the time. But the thing is that it's about market value. You kind of said it yesterday going into a break. It's essentially what the market is willing to pay. I can put my house up, and I had a realtor whose father was a neighbor of mine, and he was a city councilman at the time in the town I live in. And so she introduced herself and said, I mean, you've got a great location, great home, blah, blah, blah. And, we could probably get top dollar. And then, she gave the amount. I said, well, that'd be great if I were in the market, selling it. And so then you look at what is going on in those moments when prices are hot, during the entire thing with leading up to the recession, and you had manipulated markets in play with the subprime lending, and you had people that didn't otherwise qualify for loans walking the streets shopping with a lot of money and buying way too much homes. What happened to the market? Well, you had a lot of the sellers then go, well, okay, if there's that much money in the market, let's see what we can do. And then prices were inflated, and then boom, 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 boom. You get investors and all the flippers involved and everything else, and you've got this massive, massive bubble of real estate, and it happens all the time. Don't get us started about college. So all of these things have a price, but also have a value. So here's the thing. People often overpay. You knew the other day you were overpaying for that water,
Yep.
but you needed water, and you
Yep.
couldn't get water otherwise because drinking out of a fountain is ew.
And I have a water bottle, but I didn't bring it with me.
Right.
I was afraid it would freeze.
Right. Yeah.
So
And so, you those are the things where, okay, in those moments, is it worth it? Insurance. Let's talk about insurance, because that was part of the a case against Trump. Trying to gain, according to the AG of the state of New York, he was trying to gain favorable terms from insurance companies and underwriters at banks. All right, let's look at that, because we can see the inflation with auto insurance. I had to, when I bought my new vehicle yesterday, and for those wondering, I bought a new vehicle because I had to get a larger engine. You know how hard it is to kill the planet with a V6 engine? It takes a long time.
But you're trying.
I'm trying, so I got a bigger engine. And, I got on with my insurance company to make sure everything was good, and got my new policy and all that into play, and it came out actually even. I actually saved $9 somehow. But the thing is that we've all seen it. Now, when I renew in April, that's not going to be the case. I won't be saving money like most people. I'm going to be paying more every year. Well, wait a minute. Are they gouging? Well, okay, now let's look at the mix as to why it's happening. Well, you live in a major metro area. There's more EVs on the road. Those are expensive to fix. Even if you don't drive one, you're sharing the road with them, and that brings up the cost for everyone. All these things that go into play. Is that, what about life insurance for young people? Well, wait a minute. They shouldn't be, well, the market is such that, well, if you're young and you're healthy and you go in and you get a physical, then they'll sell you a cheaper policy. But if you're not, then, of course, you're going to pay. I mean, what is the market value of anything, and how do you set that price if this is to be the precedent set by the state of New York? You and I both believe it's going to be overturned. But imagine this extrapolated out then in the state of New York.
I hope it's overturned. I don't know where it goes. I still can't figure out, if he can't get to the state Supreme Court, can he get to the federal courts without paying that off?
Right.
So, I mean, I would think that a conservative Supreme Court would look at this and say it's out. I don't know if it gets that far.
And by the way,
if it gets that far to the Supreme Court, I think there's a good chance it will be overturned.
And what about prosecutors in other blue areas that want to go after people and do these kind of prosecutions?
I worry about the slippery slope, because you notice that Democrats no more look at the right and say, "Oh, you guys are going on a slippery slope that's never going to happen because it's gone way beyond the slippery slope."
Right.
But if this sticks in New York State, and I think it will have a devastating effect on business in New York State, but if it sticks, is it the beginning of setting the precedent for Democrats to have price controls. And we'll talk about that coming up. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
The IFTA tax program redistributes tax revenue to states based on your actual miles run. Thus, the truly cheapest fuel can only be found if you subtract federal and state taxes and state surcharges from the pump price to compare. The strategy means that you buy without regard for whether you are paying more at the pump in taxes. IFTA also considers state surcharges, which complicates the fuel buying strategy. Indiana, Kentucky, and Virginia have per gallon surcharges. Connecticut, Kentucky, New Mexico, New York, and Oregon have per mile surcharges. While some owner-operators buy only enough fuel to get through surcharge states, this practice can backfire, depending on the actual cost of the fuel in each state. When comparing fuel prices, always remember, pump pride minus taxes equals the real fuel cost. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I look at it, this entire thing with Trump, and it just sits in the back of my mind, and because I always know that Democrats will take any precedent and just pervert the hell out of it. And so I look and think the last time that I had that my car insurance was just, here I am, a senior citizen. I'm like, what in the world am I paying this for? This is ridiculous. There's no way I should be paying this. Mm-hmm. Went to another insurance company, 70% less. Mm-hmm. I went back to my company. I said, we can't do anything. And so I was gone. Can I charge them with fraud because obviously they're gouging compared, and they're both reputable, well-known insurance companies. Mm-hmm. Under this provision, are they committing fraud because they're they are throwing out a way inflated value of the car insurance?
Well, I think the bundle thing is kind of going away too, because they're, with both auto insurance and homeowners insurance going up, skyrocketing. Now you can, and I'm in the place where my homeowners insurance, which was also the company that had for the longest time my auto insurance, it was like, okay, I shopped around for auto insurance first. That was coming up for renewal. I did that. Then I talked to the new company that I jumped to on that and said, okay, let me look into bundling with homeowners insurance. Their coverage was nothing like the old company. So I stayed with the old company on homeowners insurance.
Yeah, right. I mean,
and it's like, okay,
you do the negotiations exactly.
Because and it was like, are you kidding me? I mean, on the coverage, it was like, yeah, that's the best we can do, unless you want to pay. And it was this huge amount to cover roof replacement. Then it's only going to be partial roof replacement, and I don't mean deductible. It was reduced greatly, and I thought, yeah, no way.
Just very quickly, people are asking this question. We just want to address it because it really has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But if Trump overvalued his property and paid property taxes on that value, is he owed a refund? No, because he doesn't set
the value.
And on
the central appraisal, appraisal district of New York, then sets that value, and then he can challenge it.
Right,
and it works that way, but he doesn't set that value. It was not set by any of these transactions here that were part of the case.
And it would be the same thing. I don't know how commercial real estate insurance works in New York. I know for me, for example, since my house is paid off, I don't have to have homeowners insurance. Well, I'd be nuts not to.
Right.
But they set the price and the value.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I can negotiate is if I'll say, well, that's too. I'm going to go somewhere else, and they'll lower it. But just wanted to touch those two bases because it's really not really on the topic because we're talking about the legalities of it and the government doing it, not how it affects
Right.
other parts of insurance. That's not really the topic at hand.
How the state government in this case is basically setting market value and also eliminating the art of the deal.
Well, setting market value without being able to tell you what that formula is.
Exactly.
Autonomous individuals in unison. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you choose. I was at the dealership yesterday.
Yeah?
Yesterday was one of those days I woke up early, went to the dealership, went shopping. By the time I got home, it was eat and go to sleep. It's like, wow.
Well, as I was mentioning,
You got a car.
I bought a new vehicle and got a new truck and
Not a car.
And so
So where's your charging station for it?
I just plugged in the back of the building. I didn't know you needed. I thought I brought my own little extension cord. You know, one of the tiny ones, one of the tiny little brown ones you get for $3
With no grounding.
with no ground
wire, just
no grounding. Yeah, I just sawed it off. It'll work, right?
You've got your cell phone charger.
Well, it's funny because I got a 5.3 liter V8. And because I'm going to be doing things and stuff. And I thought to myself, it won't be long. Because they're all going to the smaller dual turbo things, which, by the way, have been fairly impressive. There's a Chevy has a 2.7 liter, like twin turbo, and it apparently gets, it's fairly impressive on its torque and horsepower. But I needed some, I'm the old school. It's like I'd rather have too much power and not need it than to have to struggle with it. And I don't want to be back at the table again. I just bought my other truck about 2.5 years ago. So it was like, yeah, I don't go through vehicles that often. I'm not the guy where every couple of years, I'm going to go buy a new one. That's not me. But I really needed to kind of up the game on it. And, I got there not long after they opened, and I was there, early afternoon, heading out and doing some other errands and then heading home. And it was one of those days. But it was interesting because, you kind of see what's going on when I was shopping. It's like you see what the marketplace is, right? What the offerings are from different OEMs and what's going on with that. And it's also where the demand is, because the OEM's backing away from EVs recently and saying, well, there's robust demand for the hybrids. It's like, is there? And the new hybrid technology, which they took from basically the train technology, and that is, which isn't going to be an all hybrid technology, but some will be implemented with some of the trucks on the road, the four-wheel trucks, not big rigs. And that is to basically take that motor and use it to charge the battery only, not to ever power the vehicle itself. And that will be interesting to watch that develop and how far that goes. But you still have a massive battery, and you still have a massive cost with that battery in maintenance and or replacement after an accident or anything like that. And, we were talking insurance. The cost part of the cost is, and especially in metro areas, the number of EVs in your area. And with metro areas, it's going to be greater because they can't leave town. They're stuck in the city. And you're going to have to share the road with them. Even if you don't buy an EV, it's going to affect your insurance. And that's just the reality because the cost of replacing those vehicles, something happens, it may look like a fender bender, but if it's done damage to the battery, it gets very expensive quickly. And so the cost of everything, I got a great deal, but still I looked at it in comparison to what my brother-in-law did back. He bought his truck. It was 2018. But by comparison, I mean, it was like, okay, my great deal was nothing like the deal he got, still several $1,000s away from where he landed back in 2018. And I was like, the inflation thing is real,
Yeah, but I don't care about any of this.
Mm-hmm.
You got a 5.3 V8.
That's right.
You're a planet killer.
I know. It took too long to kill the planet with a V6.
I lost you after the 5.3 V8.
Yeah.
You know what I thought of when you said that, a V8? I've spent a lot of time with my dad this weekend, and I can still remember when my dad got me, I don't know if anybody else around my age ever got it, the visible engine.
Oh, yeah, you talked about that.
Yeah, it's and that was a V8. I don't know, I can't remember what model engine it was and what car it was in, but we put that all together.
Yeah,
and it was it was clear plastic where you could look at all inside of it had crankcase and everything.
Right,
and
right.
The spark plugs you could actually time the distributor where the spark plugs would go up as the pistons, when the piston came up.
Yeah.
And
right.
You learned all about intake, power,
right,
exhaust, and all that. I mean, you learned all that, and you knew how a car ran.
Yeah.
And you and I've talked about in technology and stuff, like Pete Buttigieg being Secretary of Transportation, Biden or Harris. I mean, think about it. You think these people understand science?
And they're the ones making the rules.
They're making the rules, and
that
you think
govern all of it.
Right? You think they have any clue of the science of how vehicles actually work, or how power actually is generated? You think Kamala Harris has any kind of clue at all?
Well, the closest that Pete Buttigieg, the guy who's in charge of the Department of Transportation that sets the rules for America's trucking industry, the closest he's ever got to trucking is watching an Amazon van pull up and deliver his new bicycle.
And we don't necessarily consider that the perfect stereotype of what we view as a truck.
Hey, I love those last milers. They are hustlers. I know.
I know.
The good kind of hustlers. Man, you watch them work. Yeah, not the hustlers that live in my neighborhood.
They work. You work.
No, they
work.
They are busting their backsides. And
I was not insulting the drivers.
Exactly,
I was talking about the comparison of trucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it is, the thing is that, but that's it. They kind of do look at that and see only maybe, or their experience is limited to, the last milers. Well, the last milers is a critical part of it because we demand everything being brought to our door. Eric's trying to get it delivered to the couch, but we're working on it. But then you look at long-haul trucking, you look at where, in fact, the trucking industry is right now and how it has been a leading economic indicator, for the entire economy. One of the things we've been watching is this trucking recession that's going on. And I think there are a number of things going on. Part of it is how we get goods and what the demand for goods is, and distribution centers and how they're being set up. And, part of that is kind of the Amazon distribution thing, because now they tower over UPS and FedEx on that last mile type delivery. Well, if you don't understand the entire supply chain And, you know, Wall Street Journal did several months ago this great 15-minute video of, okay, you order a charger from China or wherever it is overseas, and it's going to get on a shipping container, get on this huge ship, and then all of a sudden a long-haul trucker gets it out in L.A., then brings it, and then they featured a really great UPS driver. I think she was about to reach retirement or was within a couple of years of retirement. And, you know, talking about, man, she's got it down as you have to have it down in that kind of routine and business. But if you don't understand the entire part of it, you're missing way too much. And that would include, okay, if you're only focusing on long haul, but you don't understand the critical part of now, especially that last mile, then you're not including the entire picture. And you have to have a full understanding of how they all work together. That's why I really appreciated the way that the Wall Street Journal in their video, and you can follow their channel on YouTube. There's not a paywall. I mean, just the YouTube paywall, but it's not really a paywall. It's commercials if you don't pay for non-commercial. So it's really a great follow. But that video was a great demonstration of supply chain. It is simplified, but there were some great examples. What it takes to get, you know, this little widget, this phone charger, you know, to your door. And there has to be a great understanding. They don't have an understanding because they don't care to have an understanding. And that's the critical part of all this, is that if you cared about it, that would mean you would care about how people make a living. You would care about the time that they put into their job and career or their business and all of that. That's what the money represents. You know, that's your sweat equity that you are building in that role. They don't care about that because they don't care anything about wealth at any level. They don't care about your earnings, unless you're earning, you know, $600 a year as a part-time lawnmower. Then, you know, Janet Yellen wants to come after you. And those are the things that, when you line it all out, you and I talked about this years ago. Why is it that we get paid? We get paid for our time, our experience as it builds over the years. And then, you know, productivity. That's what productivity is. When there is no concern for that, for the job being done, and this is part of someone in Pete Buttigieg's position as, you know, Secretary of Transportation, you need to have a very clear understanding, but also appreciation for the job that is done under your rule in order to rule properly, because you have to understand you're now changing people's lives, not just their livelihood, their lives. When you're a long-haul trucker, you live on the road. You work 14 hours a day. You're not home sometimes for weeks at a time. These are the things you have to consider. And when you appreciate the fact that there are still people out there that are doing it and they're not getting wealthy at it, then you understand, hey, maybe we need to give them a break and not come down on them with hours of service or ELDs or whatever it's going to be. I'm not putting all that in Pete Buttigieg's corner, but we're living in that world where more rules are better, and that has never been the case.
We just, I look at it, we have politicians, the vast majority, that have no idea how the real world works.
Right.
They don't have the clue how and we'll, coming up following the top of the hour, we'll play, Kevin O'Leary was on CNN again, and the anchor was trying to challenge him in a way, and it's just like, as soon as she opened her mouth, I went, she has no idea. She's just parroting. She's just parroting what she hears.
Right.
She has no idea how business works.
Right.
And we talk about this when we talk about Biden talking about energy. You think Biden knows how electricity works? You think he knows the science of the grid? You think he understands the efficiency and productivity of a EV versus a gasoline engine? And you think he's has any clue as to, has he figured out why EVs are so expensive?
Right.
I mean, there's just so much here that I look at government, I go, they're completely clueless. These are the people that we put in office are the people that have no idea how things work.
Exactly. Over and over again. You know? I mean, it's on full display.
Yeah, it's sad.
It is.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hey, is the reason that Manchin decided not to run is because the No Labels Party was upset that he actually took a position when he said Biden yesterday doesn't have the knowledge, function, or ability to unite the country?
Oh.
By the way, that's the stupidest thing. We're going to reunite the country. How? Specifically, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to meet in the middle, and we're going. What does that mean? Meet in the middle. Answer the question. It's the same thing. This is the same thing like the question that I've never got one answer in almost 35. Is it 35? Yes, years of talk radio. Wait a minute. Yes, almost 35 years of talk radio. I've never got the answer that Democrats have said over and over again, and that is the rich have to pay their fair share.
What is fair?
And when they
Define
ask,
fair.
and you've seen the polls, when they ask people what they believe is fair, it's always less than what even the rich are paying.
Right.
And they ask what should the rich pay, and it's always more what the rich actually pay than what the public believes they should pay, which is fair. Well, I won't say always, but the majority of polls that I've seen have underestimated, that amount. So
Yeah.
but those are so when we get into political parties asking questions that nobody can answer or making statements that nobody can answer, that's when you know you're being BS'd, folks.
Yeah.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, a high school basketball player who identifies as a girl accused of causing injuries in a basketball game that caused the opponents to forfeit. A girls' basketball game between two Massachusetts schools made waves earlier this month when one team forfeited against their opponent, which had a biological male who identifies as a female on the court, a source told Fox News Digital. The Collegiate Charter School of Lowell forfeited against Kipp University, which resides in Lynn, Massachusetts, at halftime. Kipp was leading the game. Was leading the game 31-14. But the game goes on the record as a 10-0 win. A video circulating online on Monday showing one player for the Collegiate Charter wrestling for a rebound with the biological male athlete from Kipp Academy. Some have expressed concern after the girl for Collegiate Charter was injured on the play after hitting the court, grabbing her back in pain. A source told Fox News Digital that the biological male, who identifies as a female, is more than 6 feet tall and has facial hair. There were other reports that said there were 3 women injured. Fox News says they cannot verify it. They believe those injuries came before that, and nobody in the team has said that the other 2 injuries were a result of that. But from the Democrat standard, though, this is not my opinion. I want to make this clear. But the Democrat standard, women, if you're going to play against the men, you got to toughen up.
Yeah. Just the way it is.
That's the thing. It's not. Again, I'm giving the Democrat response to this. Again, it's not the fault of the biological male.
No.
it's the fault of the biological females
Right.
for not bulking up.
Well, listen, be taller.
It's,
What's so hard about that? Be taller.
right. Identify as taller.
Yes.
It's the same thing as being taller.
Be taller.
Right. Just to me.
Not his fault that you refuse to be taller.
So I started getting text messages about a week ago. I'm going, why am I getting text messages from politicians consistently?
Yeah.
What's going on here? I mean, Election Day isn't in my mind. I was thinking, oh, there is no Texas primary.
Mm.
And it's coming up. Early voting, I think, started yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
And
I know. I drove by a polling place in my neighborhood, and I was like, why are all the signs early voting?
and I don't care whether it's for my city council, school board, whatever. Everyone, is, I mean, one of the major issues is still, when you talk local, is critical race theory.
Yeah.
And the insane liberal activist transgender movement. And these politicians are coming out and going, we are against this. You know, the other candidate is getting money for this. So it's as strong as it was a year ago.
Yeah, sure. No, I don't think it's going to go away.
And I'd said this before. You know, I'm looking at, local politicians. I'm like, oh, yeah. If you sit there and you're running for office, I don't care whether you're a Republican or Democrat, and you say that a biological man can be a biological woman because they say so. Now, the left, I did see the one audio the other day from one of the Democratic, I don't know if it's a Democratic congressperson, but somebody defending the transgender movement saying, oh, no. Again, this isn't about sex, it's about identity. Well, it is about sex, because that's why you want the men to play against the women.
Exactly.
I mean, they want it both ways. They forget that you and I have been paying attention to this. And we remember. Now, we did not get a notice of when the left decided to change.
No.
They never had the courtesy to inform us that they went from, well, no, see, you're arguing sex. We're just talking, we don't want to play in the sports teams. We just want to be recognized that, we are transgender.
Yeah.
Well, as we know, that was the slippery slope, which started, and now they wish to do everything they possibly can to destroy women's sports opportunities and women's scholarship opportunities because of sports. The misogyny in this movement and how the liberal feminists in this country have surrendered to the male.
Yeah.
The male gets to define what a woman is. These bunch of cowards in the feminist movement backed off for men.
And that's a growing part of the defense of the entire agenda right now at play. Some of the biggest defenders are the feminists of yesterday.
Yep. When Gloria Steinem came out, now, if you've been a long-time listener to the show, we stated this at least 10 years ago. We said, if this continues, the feminist movement is dead.
Yeah.
We said that. And when Gloria Steinem a couple of years ago came out and said, I fully support the transgender movement and everything that involves in it, we're like, well, there it is.
There it is.
They just waved the white flag.
Yep.
Feminism is dead.
Yep. Well, and
because the man says so.
that's it.
And
think about that.
And so the feminist women had to submit to the will of the man because the man says
taller.
so. The man's taller.
Be taller. What is wrong with you? Here's the thing: is that, and honestly, on the political will, I mean that really is the last front, right? You would think, okay, your Everest to climb here the one you're not going to be able to get around, the big thing in your way is going to be the group of feminists. You're not seeing that at all. They absolutely, no. Guess they're saying, well, maybe we had it wrong. Maybe men are better. I just want to know what's going on at the.
What?
I mean, do the
No.
feminists have meetings? I mean, what are, they're calling each other. What are they? What are you saying to each other?
Isn't it wonderful? Hi, I'm Gloria Steinem. Isn't it wonderful that the transgender female got to play basketball and knocked over the woman and hurt her? This really shows how the feminist movement is moving forward in the United States.
Yay! Do it like one of those promos from the 50s and early 60s. Ah, that's Gloria. She's your little lady, keeping the home fires burning. She's going to have dinner hot and ready when you get home.
The man now says the woman must be in the kitchen.
That's right.
And because a man can decide the definition of a woman, women must submit. It's time to head to the kitchen.
She knows just where he keeps those slippers and his pipe that he loves so much when he gets home.
Yeah.
She's making sure she spends her life. This is exactly. Think about it. The civil rights movement, and we said it from the beginning of all this years ago.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone can belong to a protected group, as outlined by the Civil Rights Act,
There is no
just by saying so, then there are no protected groups. And if that's the case, then everything is off. Well, and this is the
liberal ideas that we're talking about.
Exactly. And this is the entire implosion of all of that, of the Civil Rights Act, of Title IX, of all of it. We abandon it for what they believe is the greater cause. I think clearly what they're doing here is they're trying to rebuild their own civil rights movement, going in a completely different direction. Led by the men, of course.
My point is I can't believe the number of texts I'm getting. And normally I would just go, whatever, it's just another one and delete it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at them now because I find it fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this the other day. When you look at the two things out there, if you believe in the radical transgender movement that a biological male can be a biological female, because you're either lying that you believe it's true, or you're being intimidated to do so, or on science, you're completely delusional.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't vote for you.
Right.
Sorry, I cannot vote for you. And if you add on to that critical race theory,
Mm-hmm.
and we've talked about what they're teaching, that whites are basically, because of culture, it might as well be that race is in our DNA because white people act this way, and the identity politics of the Democratic Party, which is racism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
If you're a racist and you're delusional about science and you wish to deny women their opportunity to play sports, sorry, I'm not voting for you. By the way, if I had said that 10 years ago, I might sound like a liberal.
Well, that's it. It is so radical right now on the left. Everything, there's really nothing that is out of bounds for them. There is nothing out of bounds for them. It used to be politically, there were things that they wouldn't even approach, especially during a major election season. Now they see that as basically the torch. The more radical it is, the greater the light it needs in their eyes, which makes you wonder, here in a few months in Chicago at the convention, what's the DNC look like?
Well, it's interesting, the number of articles, and this is coming from the liberal media, that the State of the Unions are going to be the reset, and he's going to come out and talk about how, think about this, Biden comes out, State of the Union, and says, and here I have been forced to use executive action to stop what's going on the border because the Republicans won't act.
Yeah.
They believe that's what Axios reported. And the other one is that they're going to come out and really, really start loosening the EV mandates. Now, I saw one story that said that. I saw another story that both this week that said, no, what the Biden administration wants to do is even have higher standards for gasoline engines, to get them off the mark. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out State of the Union.
Mm-hmm.
These are all basically source stories as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And so, but that will be interesting. Will they back off on EVs? Will they pretend that they are closed border people? Don't be surprised. You think about it. You and I talked about how, for years it was common knowledge when the Democrats would move, to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Obama did that successfully.
Mm-hmm.
He moved to the middle. I always go back to the firefighter that I talked to one time in September of 2008. And he said, I've been listening to Obama. He's a lot more conservative than I thought. And this is in September. And I said, when did you start listening? He goes, about a week ago. I went, okay, yeah, the general election's on.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not.
Right.
And now they're doing it all over again. Why? Because they believe that the people that vote for them, that they can work against their best interest in the cities when it comes to safety, that they won't defend Americans when it comes to the border, that Americans are not their priority.
Right.
You as an American are not the top priority of the Democratic Party.
Right.
That's a message that's being sent out.
Right.
But that I saw the city council meeting, was it Lakewood, is it, Colorado, where that was all going on, where they were talking about it. And that came up from so many speakers. I watched that over the weekend, and the speakers were saying, you're here for our interests, not the migrants' interest.
Right.
You're here to defend our interest.
Right.
This is our money.
Right.
And one of the points they were making, and I'm assuming these were Democrats, saying this is a federal government responsibility. The money to support all of these migrants must come from the federal government.
Right.
I thought that was interesting. I went, is that a Democrat who believes in open borders but believes the federal government should be taking care of all the cost?
Right. And also believes in sanctuary policy?
Yes.
Which
would
seem impossible.
Right,
but
because that's the defeat of the argument. Is
exactly.
That if for sanctuary cities, you cover it.
Exactly.
It's what your city council voted for.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so that high school basketball player. So now you've got biological men in contact sports.
Yeah.
It's just
right.
It's just you shake your head. These are all adult decisions. These are school board decisions. They're reprehensible.
And yet it still is moving right along.
Yep. Does it? Even with Riley Gaines out there and everything else, that's why we have said this before. The debate and the political battle ahead is never ending. I do remember when. I do remember the Married with Children for the beer tax, where Al went out and they voted once. It's like, well, we're done voting. We're never going to vote again. It's like,
yeah, right.
And the famous words at the end of that, the best populist political speech ever, by the way, is when he said, "Let's pillage."
Yeah,
they go,
right.
But the beer tax speech is just probably the best political populist speech I've ever heard. Maybe a little crude, but the fact is, and you and I have met them. Well, I voted in the last two elections, and I'm giving up because it's not going anywhere. Well, you fight your whole life for it.
Yeah.
You're talking about, the Constitution. You fight your entire life. I do. That's what I wish to do to protect the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
By explaining it to people and telling people why it's a good thing and why taking parts out of it is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just, you look at the insanity going on right now, and you just wonder, when is the insanity going to end? And I do like the fact that more conservatives and even more independents are stating this is insane. Not just this, but the other issues.
Right.
It's insane what our leaders are doing right now.
Well, and they're pushing harder and harder because the left is still winning elections.
Yep.
And as long as that's the case, it will keep going.
Based on where the public stands on all the major issues, Republicans should be up 65.
Oh, yeah. Not even close.
65 to 35.
Yeah. Not even
That's
close.
what it should be. Based on the issues.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right. Nope.
Based on strictly the issues, Republicans should be able to win in New York, California, and Illinois.
Yep.
And in some districts they may, but the fact is those states will still be led by Democrats.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's not going to change in our lifetime.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And it's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Just a couple of days after he said, I'm out, he was on CNN. We're talking about Joe Manchin earlier this week, said President Biden is not the person who has the knowledge, function, and ability to unite the country and has been pushed too far left, and he hopes Biden can go back to being who he was before. I wouldn't.
Who would that be?
Who is that?
What do you want? What do you think where huh?
All right, Milton. Host Katie Collins asked, you also said that in a president, you're looking for someone who has the knowledge, has the function, and has the ability to bring this country together. Is Joe Biden that candidate? Manchin. Well, that's the Joe Biden I used to know. I've had this conversation with him and his people that he's gone too far to the left. They've pushed him and pulled him and whatever, but that's not where America is. That's not where our country is. So I'm hoping that Joe Biden that we saw in 2020 will be the Joe Biden we see in 2024, if that can be done. What is he talking about? I swear to you, he's delusional. The Joe Biden of 2020, which conservative Joe Biden or middle of the road was that? The one who encouraged during the campaign people from everywhere to come to the United States and you'll get in? Is that the Joe Biden that he's talking about? The Joe Biden who during the campaign said his goal is to get rid of all fossil fuels? Manchin is he's delusional or he's lying for the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
I don't know who is this moderate Joe Biden you're talking about?
This is the always trying to appease approach by Manchin. Never actually appeasing anyone, always trying to appease everyone.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, he's trying to I don't think he's trying to appease everyone. Well, he's attempting to do it, but You're right. He's attempting to appease them, but all
By
he's doing
using the
is,
BS.
is BSing them is
Right.
what he's doing.
Right.
And we've talked about this before with the No Labels Party. Well, we're really not going to tell you where we stand on the issues. It's all that matters to me. Nothing else matters. What's politics about? What government's going to do on these issues? No. Because if you bring up the issues, well, then you can turn off some people, and we don't wish to do that yet. So we are the No Labels Party. We stand for nothing, except we stand for this generic dream of a bipartisan Camelot, where we will have Camelot returns. We'll have a Republican president and a Democrat vice president, or a Democrat president and a Republican vice president. And that will bring harmony to the country, and everybody will come together. And that's what we need. We need the unity ticket. We need the ticket that will unify America. And the only thing that matters is how do you unify? How do you have a chance of unifying the public more? Do what the public says. The majority of the public says. Is he willing to do that? No. And on a number of issues, we've said, where's the compromise?
Well,
where's the compromise? For example, on the border, they've told us until recently the border was secure. Where's the compromise on the border? What's the compromise on our grid? What's the compromise when somebody says we're going to get rid of all fossil fuels, as he did during the campaign?
What's the compromise on the liberal transgender movement?
Yeah. Where's the compromise?
What's the compromise for those radicals wanting to teach sexualized content to 5-year-olds?
Yeah. Where is the compromise over identity politics, where you judge people by groups and not individuals? Well, we're not going to do that anymore. This would be the Democrat platform. We're not going to do that anymore, except for Jews.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the Republicans don't hit this hard enough. It's one thing that you and I have stated over and over again. The American public understands. Every Democrat listening, every single Democrat listening right now knows that identity politics is racism, where you judge people by groups instead of individuals. Every Democrat knows that when any liberal black attacks a conservative black as being an Uncle Tom, every Democrat listening right now knows that's racism. When the President of the United States lies about an election law that now nobody views as controversial at all in Georgia, and he lies and says it's basically Jim Crow, and he does that in order to enrage people based on their ethnicity identity, to infuriate people that the other side wishes to go back to Jim Crow, when that's completely false. Every Democrat knows that's racism. And that's the one thing that the Republicans don't fight back hard enough on. How dare they call us a racist? They're the ones that have been practicing identity politics. They're the ones that judge people by groups. We judge individuals. Why can't any Democrat why can't any Republican do that? Why can't that marketing message? Well, that's why you need somebody new in the RNC. Why can't they market that message on a consistent basis, day in and day out, 364 days of the year? Why can't they do that? Because it's the repetition, and it's the substance of the argument that the public already knows. They have to lie when they talk about Charlottesville with Trump. They got to lie about what he said.
Right.
Michael Rappaport figured that out. The actor, the liberal actor.
It took a minute, but at least he said, I was willing to go back and listen to the whole thing.
Right. And he said he was one of the biggest people promoting how Trump's a racist based on Charlottesville. And when he actually read the transcript, he said, oh, my God, I was lied to.
Right.
I was lied to. The president still brings up Charlottesville
Yeah.
as the proof that Trump is a racist. Well, as we have said, the Democratic Party as a whole with identity politics, when the question was asked in 2020, so you guys don't believe, because we talked about the whole point, we mentioned it yesterday with that new study, or not the new study, but the study that came out in 2016 that the black Harvard professor came out with that said, I was surprised. We did the study, most extensive study, one of the most extensive studies ever done. We did it in 2016. Can't find any racism in police shootings. And he said, how he was threatened, everything. It was a horrible experience, for him on it. We called that out. Early on.
Yeah.
And when you look at the, identity politics of that, what was going on there, you and I remember the ultimate of identity politics, where two white women are screaming at a black cop, telling him he's not truly black.
Right.
You want racism? My God, that was so blunt.
They were screaming at him that he had betrayed his race.
Yes. Because and remember, you're not black, you're blue.
Right.
That you can't be a cop.
That's where they had to change it, remember.
And it was
because they ran into the wall where, now, because they had to go after all cops are racist. And then it was, wait, there are many cops who are black. So, no, we'll just say they're not black, they're blue.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you have two young white girls telling a black cop he's betrayed his race.
Yeah.
Screaming in his face.
And the Democratic Party completely
and
quiet
the
on
Democrats don't care.
They don't.
That's bizarre.
And so it does get to me that Republicans seem to be lost on message on messaging.
Yeah.
They don't communicate effectively, because I'd be doing that every single day, because I'd want them to challenge me. Well, tell me how calling and bring the examples out, how calling somebody, and they're just going to deny, well, we don't do that. Right. That's what you'll hear.
Right.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, you load yourself up with all the examples over the years.
Right. Well, and that's it, that they over and over again have demonstrated it very clearly, and people refuse to look. Well, we're at the point now where the radicalism has caused all of this damage because we've gone to extremes and allowed them to go to extremes in every direction.
And the difference is, we are at a time in history where it's not the fact that those in power, which would be Democrats in the Senate and the House, and before this they had last year they had the Senate and the executive branch, and they had the House also last year. And so you look at it and you say, we're not in the first time in history. We're not at a point where you look at it and say, well, we can't handle the problems that come up organically in a society. It's at, what do you do when you elect a government that is causing the problems? That is in a calculated and premeditated way trying to destroy your life, make your life harder. Every single day, it's make your life harder. That's the difference. Yep. And that's why Republicans have to come out and say, use that type of terminology, and then get into, make sure you're promoting, and you have ads on identity politics. And you have ads. We, the Republican Party, believe that judging people by groups and not individuals is wrong. We know that the identity politics, and you can quickly do a history of it in the 90s, where and you can go back and you can find the audio. I mean, they are the RNC. Maybe they don't have any money, but but all the money that you can raise over this period of time, you can use that effectively.
Yep,
and that's just one topic. You can hit the liberal transgender activist movement. Doesn't take long. We're the Republican Party. We sympathize We sympathize for anyone who is suffering from a dysphoria.
Mhm.
And we have sympathy and compassion for the statistics of the attempted suicide rates of that. The solution is not to lie to the American public and lie to young people and tell them that a biological male can be a biological female when they say so, because they've said so.
Well, and it's also not the solution is not to encourage the behavior that's leading to, in many cases, a negative mental state. That all has to be resolved. If you care about the individuals involved, then it has to be addressed.
Absolutely. Oh, you saw we'll get to the story. Was it parents in Indiana? Lost their kid.
Yeah.
We'll get to that story. Lost their kid because they wouldn't say the proper pronouns.
Right.
The state took their kid.
Right.
I'll have the story. It might not be Indiana. I know it was some Midwestern state. We'll get to that here coming up. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of, following the top of the hour, we'll hear from Kevin O'Leary, again from Shark Tank. His videos are going viral.
Yeah.
He actually
lots of play.
Actually has an interesting conversation with the CNN anchor about the decision on the Trump civil trial that was just completed in the $355 million. I guess the $355 million is already $455 million. I don't know how they did it, but I don't know if they've gone back to when he was charged. The 9% interest rate takes effect. Because I've been hearing now it's 455.
Yeah.
That it's a 355 plus interest. I'm like, well, there's no interest on it as of, when did they start the interest? And I believe that when he found him guilty is when he started it.
Well, you're not going to have to work very hard if you're Letitia James to convince that judge, right? In terms of what actions are going to be taken. Confiscating the property as she's talking about, basically. That logically is the next move. And to what extent and how far can they go with it before he can get before an appeals court?
Can he get before a federal court to say that forget about the state courts, can he take it straight to the federal courts and say, here's where my rights are being denied here as an American citizen, and have them hear it?
Because you're talking about ultimately the confiscation of property.
Yes.
And the destruction of a business simply because they don't like the way he did business, not based on any laws broken or any complaints against him.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Well, we finally got it here in the United States. A Catholic couple, Eric, in Indiana, is asking the Supreme Court to hold the state accountable for keeping their child out of their home after they declined to use his chosen name and pronoun. In MC and JC versus Indiana Department of Child Services, Mary and Jeremy Cox are appealing to the Supreme Court after they were investigated by Indiana officials for refusing to refer to their son using pronouns and a name inconsistent with his biological sex. Beckett Legal is pursuing the case on behalf of the Coxes, arguing state courts allowed Indiana to keep the child from living in his parents' home due to their disagreement with the child's gender identity because of their religious beliefs. Notably, upon completing the investigation, the state determined the allegations of abuse against Mary and Jeremy were unsubstantiated, but still argued that the disagreement over gender identity was distressing their child.
Yeah.
Lori Wyndham, vice president and senior counsel at Beckett, told Fox News Digital that no parent should ever have to endure what Mary and Jeremy have been forced to go through. Keeping a child away from loving parents because of their religious beliefs, even when the state admits that there was no abuse or neglect, is wrong and it's against the law. The court should take this case and make clear that other states can't take children because of ideological disagreements. In 2019, Mary and Jeremy's son told them that he identified as a girl, but in line with their Catholic religious beliefs, that God created human beings with immutable sex, male and female. They did not believe in referring to him using pronouns and a name inconsistent with his biology. In addition, they believed their son was struggling with underlying mental health conditions, including an eating disorder, so they sought therapeutic care for both. But in 2021, Indiana officials began investigating them after a report found that they were not referring to their child by his preferred gender identity, removing the teen from their custody and placing him in a gender-affirming home. Despite the unsubstantiated claims of abuse, which even they couldn't find.
Right.
But they claim that the parents made their child's eating disorder worse, even though it worsened after he was removed and placed in the transition affirming home. The Indiana Department of Child Services declined Fox News Digital request for comment, saying, of course, they don't comment on their cases. So there you go. This is what every parent is afraid of, Mary and Jeremy Cox said at a press release. We love our son and wanted to care for him, but the state of Indiana robbed us of that opportunity by taking him from our home and banning us from speaking to him about gender. Wow. We are hopeful that the justices will take our case and protect other parents from having to endure the nightmare as we did. So here you go. The next thing will be, as we've talked about in Canada, jailing parents who don't use the proper
Well,
pronouns.
I mean, this is it. And we told you this was coming. We told you this will be the next inevitable move. And, of course, it was. They'll go after your children. They tried to joke it away and say, oh, no, we were just joking when we were doing the protest marches and holding the signs, we're coming after your children. No, you weren't.
Nope.
Because this is what it's about. You break down, if they can, you break down religion. You break down, of course, with that, a big part of the First Amendment. Freedom of religion. Well, sorry, your freedom ends where your child starts feeling. And this is a big part of that. Kick the door open to that. I can't wait to hear some of the arguments from the liberal justices if this gets to the Supreme Court. And it should get to the Supreme Court, in my opinion.
We know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was absolutely against the radical transgender movement.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see what happens. Now, again, The problem is here, if this case, and I'm being serious, if this case goes to the Supreme Court, does Justice Jackson have to recuse herself because under oath she stated she can't define a woman? If
Right.
you can't define a woman, how can you judge this case?
Right.
Democrats, tell me where I'm wrong.
Because in this case, the young male is saying he's a young woman. Well, you don't know what that means.
Right. You can't define a woman.
If you can't define it and you don't recognize a definition, you can't be on that panel.
Because remember, not only did she say she could not define a woman, she said so under oath.
Mm-hmm.
She cannot define a woman.
Right.
And as we said at that time, the day she did it, we said she should be disqualified for lying under oath.
Right.
And no Republican brought that up. They're afraid to do it. I would have brought it up. You can't define a woman. You're lying.
Yep.
You know what a woman is. How can you serve on the Supreme Court of the United States on any women's issue or anything on the transgender movement in this country if you cannot define what a woman is? Remember, you're under oath here, and you have stated that in all of your vast experience of a human being, however she old is, 50-something, that through everything that you have been through, law school, understanding the Constitution of the United States, understanding Title IX, that you are stating under oath that you can't define what a woman is, well, then you need to disqualify yourself.
Yep. Because either you were lying under oath or you're not qualified to judge these cases.
And I know that I will be attacked by the Democrats out there, but they will never go to the heart of the issue. I'll be called names for bringing it up, but my only point is, how can you serve on the Supreme Court if you don't know what a woman is?
Right.
When discrimination issues come up constantly in the courts, and you're lying. You can define what a woman is.
It's either that or you're not qualified.
Yeah. Yeah. She lied under oath.
Of course you did. And these are the things that, that we knew were going to get to the Supreme Court. I'm hoping this case gets to the Supreme Court. Because inevitably, in Illinois, one lawmaker introducing the same approach, a bill that would basically take parents' rights. You don't get to have your child. And by the way, no mention of the fact that there's not enough room for all of the foster kids that are out there right now without homes for other reasons, as a result of abuse. I mean, the situation is horrible and has been for years. The left doesn't care about that. We don't care about the mental state of the child. It's not about the child. It's about our agenda. We're going to win this. And then they, of course, hide behind the child saying, we're doing it for the child. No, you're not. You can't possibly care about that child. Because if you did, you would know the best place for that child. And you don't get to deem this abuse. Because what's next? Mommy didn't give me candy for dinner. That caused distress, found the Department of Child Services. While it's not abuse, we're going to make the notation that the child was distressed. It's important to note that part of this story because that's an official record from an investigation. Well, the child was distressed. You may say, well, or that could just be an observation. Nope. That notation is going to set the basis for any return visit to that home regarding something of this matter. This is going to be repeated over and over again until the left wins or until the Supreme Court of the United States says no more. And this is where we are.
Or until the voter until the voter says we've had enough. Stop with the insanity.
Right.
What are you doing? This is, you think about it. You think about how, and we told everybody when the fight starts, and we said, look, you're going to have women athletes come out. They're going to have to do it. We can't, sorry, but in the tribal society and the identity politics society we live in, two men aren't going to win that argument with a significant portion of independents and Democrats. You need to bring the women that are actually the victims of this misogyny of the Democratic Party. They needed to come forward, and they have. But as we told you, they're going to double and triple down. Now that they have opposition, they're going to take it to another level, as they have. And you see, this, for example, going on. Absolute insanity in Indiana.
Yeah, it is.
Absolute insanity.
It is. That never should have happened.
Yep. And every Democrat knows that.
And they also know that there is that delicate balance that any state has within the Department of Child Services. CPS, it's called different names in different states. There is that delicate balance. You receive a report of something, and protocol is you got to go. You have to investigate that. You have to go through that. The liberals know this, and this is why they know they can kick the door open and get into your home and take your child, even temporarily. This is part of the intimidation, the same kind of intimidation where they're going to deem you terrorists for showing up at a school board meeting and send FBI agents to the parking lot to take down your license plate number because you are there justifiably issuing a grievance to the school board.
You're there to fight racism, misogyny, and insanity, and the left wants the FBI there taking down your license plate number.
And we'll also come to your home.
And by the way, we know that because of the testimony of the FBI agents going back to last fall.
And I don't want to necessarily put this on the agents of any of those workers, rather, any of the state workers that have to work, these case workers that have to work these cases. It's been my experience as a foster to adopt parent and someone who's very, very familiar with the system and how broken it is, that many of those case workers, they have an impossible job. I'm not saying they're all guilty, they're all innocent. I don't want to lay it there. I know that this agenda requires the left to use that as a weapon. They know they can do that, knowing, and that's the whole point of my statement earlier, that if you issue a complaint, if there's any kind of complaint there, then we can put child services right into action as a tool, as a weapon.
Here's a scenario, because this is going after, they're going to fight this by, the whole First Amendment and religious freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But I was raised Catholic. Mm. When I got to be a teenager at times, okay, can I skip out on church? Mm-hmm. My parents wouldn't let me.
That's distressing.
If that creates distress, can I complain that my parents are forcing a religion on me and forcing to go every Sunday?
Why not? Against my will.
Against my will, and I'm distressed because remember, the fallback position, this is really incredible, because the fallback position is being a transgender is completely normal. Mm-hmm. It's completely and totally normal, and nothing should, and so it ends there, except for the fact that if you ask questions about the whole transgender movement, well, then you're homophobic because these well-adjusted people are much more likely to commit suicide if they're upset.
Right.
That's the Democrats' position. It's not my position.
Right.
That's the Democrats' position.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, that was Tom Cotton or Harley that got that from that Berkeley professor. when he was asking questions. He goes, well, tell me about how does this work? And she goes, you just going down this path of asking questions is homophobic.
Right.
He goes, what are you talking
Just
about?
by
It's homophobic.
asking the question.
And she said, well, because transgenders have a very high, much higher attempted suicide rate, and so you're being a homophobe by just asking questions. And he goes, you mean because I'm asking questions to understand it, that is in essence hate speech and speech that is unacceptable because transgenders may commit suicide? Well, then we have a bigger problem here, don't we? 866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. A supporting document is a document generated or received by a motor carrier in the normal course of business that can be used by law enforcement to verify a driver's logs. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, including receipts for meals, lodging, and fuel, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, we'll have the audio right after the bottom of the hour of Kevin O'Leary, who is the as you know, on Shark Tank. Mm-hmm. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary. Most people probably know who he is because of that. Again, his videos have been going viral. He got into a nice discussion with CNN yesterday. CNN's Laura Coates, and and then we'll hear also Andrew McCarthy talking about it. And you really see people that are, more business and legal oriented and give it to you straight on the law and economics that look at this and go, this isn't about Trump.
Yeah.
And I think Larry called it right. This is about what is going to be winner states and loser states.
Yep.
More coming up.
The most influential radio show in the world. On now, at this moment, Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. All right.
Happy Wednesday.
Yes, happy, very, 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 very happy Wednesday.
And, happy final week of campaigning to Nikki Haley.
I've been getting emails from her.
Have you?
Yeah.
I don't think I got any from her.
Text messages.
Oh, yeah. Who did I get? I've gotten a few from text messages I get. It's like delete, block, delete, block. But Saturday in her home state, likely the last stop. That's going to be about it. She's not going to win, according to the polls. Not going to come close. And so then Sunday we'll announce she is the leading candidate for the No Labels Party. It's there's no going on after your home state, and it's going to be a significant loss for her. in her home state. And I guess your only hope, I heard somebody say the other day that they were asked, this person was asked, and I can't remember who it was, but it was on Fox News. Do you believe that she would, accept the invitation from the No Labels Party? And the person interviewing said, because I think it would be probably a career ender if she did that. And the guy that was responding said, the analyst said, yeah, but it's really, her career's not going any further anyway. So who knows? And I thought, well, that's an interesting point, at least for now, because I don't know that you come back from the positions she's had while on the campaign trail this season. And in terms of the Republican Party, the No Labels Party, yawn. I just, there is no excitement for that party. Could she steal some independents from Trump? Maybe. And I just don't know where that goes. But then again, maybe she just says, all right, enough for now. And then she runs for another office or does something else. Who knows?
Not as a Republican. If she runs for the No Labels Party, she's done as a Republican.
Oh, if she accepts the No Labels Party, it's over. Yeah.
But it's all, this is actually great. We were kidding about, yesterday. Remember, with the No Labels Party, they want, if Nikki Haley's the presidential candidate, a Democrat has to be the vice presidential candidate.
Right.
Who would that be if Nikki Haley is their nominee, because their executive board made the decision, because it's not a voting thing where you've got all these million. It's not like they're going to have a convention and have a primary process. It's like, hey, we just got to pick somebody, because we need to have the few people here in the executive board pick somebody, because we must save the nation from the anti-democratic Trump.
Well, it was basically like me and dodgeball in the 6th grade. The last one picked. It's like, I guess we'll take Eric.
Yeah, but you're wrong to take that analogy, because in 7th grade, I was the last one picked. And at the end of it, I was the last one standing.
Well, I was the first one to quit, so
me.
I had a different approach.
If it's a game called Bombardment, not dodgeball, because that's what it was called, was Bombardment.
Right.
You got to stay in there if you're a kid.
Well, and at my school we used an enhanced pitching machine, so it was more like a cannon. And the balls were supposed to be those red ones that are rather soft.
Yes.
No, these were not soft at all. But it's going to be, this is going to be the, how it plays out. I think it would be. I think it's an easy prediction to say that Nikki Haley, after this weekend, is done, because the money is all but gone. There are people that are on. We're with her till the end. Well, the end is Saturday. So, because there's no other reason to really keep this thing going. There is not any message that's being had or being made, any statement being made at this point. Certainly beyond Saturday, and again, a significant loss in her home state. So where do you go from there? And, it's, No Labels Party. But honestly, that is pretty much it. Frankly, I think it would be a bad move. I think it would be a bad move for anybody.
All right. Haley, Cinema.
I was going to say Haley, Liz Cheney. Yeah, I think I said that yesterday.
You have to be officially a D.
Yeah, well,
they really
right.
they
it's only
No
about
Labels
the
want
paperwork for Liz Cheney, isn't it? It's only about the paperwork. So just get the paperwork done, you're good.
That's the only thing I can think of, and then they could brag. We have, because of diversity, the first ever.
Well.
The first ever all-female presidential vice president ticket.
Or do you abandon that whole part of the mission statement by the whatever mission statement means for the no labels party? Oh, Eric, you sound drunk. Go home. But if they decide, think about that though. If they had two, you got Liz Cheney as the definite Trump hater, right? And then Nikki Haley is, again, the last one to be in the race officially against Trump in the primary. You kind of have the two anti-Trumpers, up there, although anybody on the left would be anti-Trumper. Would their approach be, look, maybe we could just, look for that big independent vote and make our statement this way and blah, blah, yada, 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 yada. Hey, somebody wake Joe Manchin up.
Well, I will say this, and then we got to get to this audio cut.
Okay.
If the only good thing, let's say Nikki Haley, it was Nikki Haley in cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Haley is the presidential candidate for the, I almost said no look. I'm thinking basketball, no look party,
Yeah.
the no labels party, and then cinema is the vice presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And they win. All right, she wins the presidency on that. The only good thing that comes out of it? The despair of Hillary Clinton.
When it's her time, takes on a whole new meaning.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first woman president
Yeah.
is a Republican.
Hillary
Or she might not be a Republican by the time the vote happens.
Yeah, former Republican, I guess.
Right, because she would be officially no labels at that point.
Exactly.
All right, I want to play this audio here because we had promised it to you. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary has been all over the Trump decision, civil trial decision, and he's been out there saying, and it really hit us yesterday because it's something that we've been talking about post-COVID. We didn't call it winner or loser states. He did, saying that post-COVID, all the decisions being made by California. You saw what the projected debt now is, $73 billion.
Yeah.
The deficit for this year in California.
Right.
They can't. It doesn't matter. You can say the economy's doing great. The economy's doing great. California can't pay their bills.
Right.
And I'm sure they have record revenues coming in, and they still can't pay their bills. And so I thought it was interesting, just the whole concept of positioning it as the winner and loser states, because there is that question: are we going to see that? Are we going to see mass immigration statewide in the United States over the next 20 years? But here he is, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, going back and forth with Laura Coates of CNN.
Wouldn't there be many companies who would not want to do business or loan money to people like yourself or investors if they know that they can get away with fraud and there's no recourse to protect them?
Excuse me, what fraud? This is not about Trump anymore. When you get a developer that builds a building and he says it's worth $400 million and he wants to borrow $200 million from a bank, which happens every day, everywhere on earth, including every American city, every developer is an entrepreneur. They shine the light on their building and they say it's worth 400. The bank does its own due diligence, as was done in this case, because they're very good at it. The banks are very good, and they say, no, it's worth 300. We're only going to loan you 150 million. That haggling has gone on for decades. That's how it works. And then in this case, even, the bank that was supposedly defrauded testified and said, we didn't lose anything. We want to do business with this guy again. We'd like to. But the judge said, no, 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 no. Let's penalize this developer for $355 million. And if we're going to do that, let's penalize all the developers all across America. They've all done the same thing. All of them should go to jail, and we should stop building buildings. That's what the message is from New York. Even the governor herself is concerned about what this looks like to investors all around the world. It's not just U.S. domestic. All around the world, people are talking about what happened here. You really think people want to invest money in New York after this? How about we go somewhere else?
I think there are people who would. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to converse with you instead.
You just did.
It's only because I want to have a conversation,
you know what?
Kevin, as opposed to just having you tell me.
I respect you because you're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. You understand exactly what I'm talking about.
I got to tell you, I'm respectable for a number of reasons, Kevin O'Leary, but being a lawyer is one of those issues. But I'll tell you, when I hear your conversation, and I do want to converse with you about this point, I understand that there are legitimate concerns that were raised during the trial and will continue to be raised about who the quote-unquote, who is actually bringing the suit. It wasn't the banks who were saying that we as consumers or unsophisticated feel this way, but Letitia James, the Attorney General, and I know you want to expand beyond Trump, has suggested, well, it's about making the playing field level for those who are not the major and billionaire investors, but for those who are supposed to put business records out there, want to get a loan, the idea of making sure that they have to have the same true statements included as those who have a lot more money. Is there any weight to that for you?
Well, I asked you who lost money, and I'll make it even clearer. You and I, we're developing a data center together, and I say to you, we can go to New York, where this just happened. It's your money now. You're now an investor, and you're taking risk. You're an entrepreneur with me, right beside me. We're together on the deal. Or I can show you Oklahoma, North Dakota, West Virginia, where the governors actually ran businesses. Let's go there, where this never happened before. They have power. They have permits. They've got legislation that's supportive of entrepreneurship. Why would we go to New York? Why take the risk? My only point is, did we just diminish the great state of New York and the great people of New York? And shouldn't they ask for better management so they don't become a flyover state?
There you go. Look, from what she said, I would have argued it in a different way. Every point he made is a good point. But number one, you should notice where she started off saying people like you, who's defending Trump, implying that he's willing to commit this kind of fraud.
Right.
And I noticed that to begin with, which he goes, what fraud? And then he went off from that point. But now, did you see how the argument now is not, well, Trump committed fraud and this is commonplace in this country. Now it's, no, this is the way to balance and ensure that not all the rich get the privileges that the poor can't get. Well, if you're middle class and you decide to sell a property, you do the same thing. And they're trying to make it seem like this only applies to billionaires and the precedent wouldn't apply to anybody else in any financial statement where you yourself evaluate your property and say, I believe it's worth this amount, and the state can come in and say, no, it's not. And you say, well, what amount is it worth? They can't tell you. And then they wish to destroy your business because of it.
Well, and
it doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire or a millionaire or a thousandaire.
It's the first thing I thought of when she's proposing that question. You can't believe for a second this stops at Trump. Sorry, Governor Hochul. This goes all the way down to the middle-class individual who wants to negotiate anything. Any financial transaction where there is a negotiation, we're coming in, you were trying to get favoritism, and we're going to demonstrate that. You need to pay a fine. You need to hand over your property.
But that's huge because she's not even saying, well, fraud was committed here.
Right.
She's saying, well, this is a way to balance things out.
Yeah, equity.
Yeah. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wow. Every day, it's like, my God. And it just continues, and every single day it continues, and it continues, and it continues, and it continues. And it's like at times you just have to take a big, deep breath. Whew.
Right.
Big, deep breath, hour left.
Yeah, that's why I went out and bought a new truck yesterday. It just makes me feel good spending a lot of money.
Well, as PK Harley over there, PK Planet Killer. He got a V8.
Listen.
And that's not the vegetable juice.
You got to go big. If you're going to kill the planet, you can't do it with a V6. 5.3 liters at least.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.